Hi.
Oh, hi.
We are back for another edition of our Facebook Live. We've got a very excited cat joining us, and
Very
you're going to have to
excited.
suffer through me emceeing it because Amanda is still sick.
I'm just here for moral support.
But sucking it up nonetheless and doing the Facebook Live.
I'm not really talking much, though. I'm just, showing up.
That's what you think. I'm going to go on strike halfway through this.
Amazing.
So our topic this week is Google Analytics, and I sort of teed this up, in the teaser or whatever you call it that announces the post, the description, as like how do you keep track of the number of people that come to your blog? Because probably a lot of you, especially if you're using a blog platform or something, or like just getting started blogging, that's actually something it probably takes you a while to think a lot about.
Mm-hmm.
It took me, I don't know, like a year or something, embarrassingly long, a decade ago when I started Dead Tech, like, oh, how many people are actually coming and seeing this? If you start a blog now with a platform like Blogger or whatever, I'm pretty sure they come with like built-in, if you're using like their engine, I think they have like built-in stuff.
Is Blogger still a thing?
I don't know. It's like the Google one, right? There's Blogger, like WordPress.com. So if you use one of those like engines, those kind of canned blogging services, I think they'll give you this information. But if you have your own site, if you sort of graduate to like your own hosting, sooner or later you have to have an engine or a tool to help you keep track of how many people visit your blog. I mean, I guess you don't have to, but it gets sort of hard to do anything or even like understand if you're shrieking into the void unless you know that. So what Google Analytics is it's a tool that you set up for your website to help you keep track of not just like how many people from a quantitative perspective visit your blog, but like which page do they go to. Google Analytics actually gives you a fair bit of information. So like which page are they going to? How long do they stay on the page? Do they click through to more pages or just leave? Where are they from, like in the world? What device are they using? You can get a lot of information from Google Analytics. I'll also say that the way this works, and I'm going to try to come down a few levels of abstraction. It's sort of technical the way it works, but like you have to do some setup. It's not magic. And Google Analytics, how would I describe this? It basically puts a little bit of code on your website that goes out and talks to Google, and Google uses that bit of code that's on your website to then kind of close the loop and be able to keep track. So somebody loads up your web page, there's a little bit of code that goes along with that kind of like phones out to Google and says, hey, someone's visiting, Bill's website. That's probably all the more technical I want to go on that here. So the long and short of it is that the takeaway, if you like set up a site, you set up some hosting, you've got a blog and you want to have Google Analytics, it's not just magic. Like you have to do something. Now, if you're using a platform like WordPress, like an established content management system, there's going to be some plugin that makes it like super simple. Like you just go and install, I forget what we use as like Monster Insights. You install some plugin and it just walks you through everything. And it's like, here, go do this, paste this here, etc. So that's Google Analytics in a nutshell. Now, since I'm generally managing this for any clients that we have, like I kind of tend to do all the Google Analytics stuff for Hit Subscribe. Am I omitting anything, or is there anything that like would just completely fly over your head if you were?
As far as the explanation you just gave, it sounded good to me. Yeah. I remember from my limited use of Google Analytics that like the interface was incredibly difficult to understand without. I remember even having to like watch some videos on how to begin to use it because it was so confusing. Is it still a really confusing experience to like just look through and look at page views and stuff like that?
Yes. Google Analytics, yeah, that's a good point, is not the most intuitive thing to use. So if you're going to get started with it, you'll be able to figure out when you go to Google Analytics, like there's some basics. When you actually go, it's like analytics.google.com, I think. I forget, like I type it so often. But if you go to analytics.google.com, it brings up this like dashboard. And one of the things you'll see is this like graph of who's visited, how many people have visited your site over the last few days. From there are a few things that you'll be able to figure out, but to like really drill into much kind of takes some doing. Either somebody's got to kind of teach you, or maybe you go to YouTube and watch like some tutorials on Google Analytics. So in this day and age, software is so focused on usability that it's kind of a jarring experience now to go to something like this and say like, wow, this is, it's kind of like a flashback in time to 15 years ago
Yeah.
when people would have been like, oh, well, if you want to use our software, here's this like large user manual that you need. Google Analytics is, like a throwback to that era. That's a good point.
It also kind of looks like a throwback to 15 years ago too. Like it's a lot of cluttered, not very visually appealing stuff.
Now, on the flip side, it's a free piece of software, so not to
Yep.
knock it too much. It's
Yeah.
free, and it's actually really powerful. It's just kind of hard to get used to. But once you get used to it, I'm trying to think of like the best initial case. Like, if say you started a hobby blog, it's gonna in the beginning like give you data, just like is anyone coming to the blog. But it also gives you data that you can use to sort of tune your message and understand like, are you writing blog posts that resonate? So like, let's say that you do get some readers of your blog and you go and you put on Facebook like, hey, I wrote a blog post, and you get some indication, people are clicking the like in your Facebook post. Are they actually reading is something you might ask yourself. So what you can do is you go post that on Facebook, you get 5 or 6 likes, from your friends and family, but then you go into Google Analytics and you can see time on page. So maybe you see the time on page on average is like 5 seconds. That tells you that people are just being nice. They're clicking that like because they want to make you feel good. If, on the other hand, average time on page is like 5-10 minutes, then people are actually reading your article. So you start to be able to get insights about what people are doing on your site.
I think that's a really good point, and maybe the thing that is most valuable about Google Analytics is you could start to kind of paint a story for yourself about like what your readership is doing, and you could kind of start tweaking things to see what works. Like, say you have a post where you started off with a story that you thought was like really funny, and you notice that like the time on page is just a couple seconds on average for a lot of people, that you have a really low time on page thing. You can try cutting out the story and getting straight to the meat of what you were saying and see if that time on page improves, and it tells you something about your readers and what they're looking for. Maybe they're not looking for entertainment, maybe they're just looking for answers to the questions, stuff like that. You can also figure out a lot of things by your bounce rate. Like, are people, is there a certain post or something, or a certain page or something that you've written that makes people really want to stick around and see what else you did? Maybe there's a writing style that's really working for you, maybe there's some information on that page that's really working for you that makes people think, I want to stick around for this person, see what's going on.
What's a bounce rate?
Oh, I'm sorry. If you go to a page, a website, and you're just like, I'm out after you're done, chosen to stay within the site, go to different tabs, go to different pages, follow some links to different, say like if you have a blog post and the blog post says like, you want to read more, click here, or even like, just integrated into the sentence, there's a hyperlink to another blog post and you click on that to read more about that subject that's in the sentence. You have not bounced. You've stuck around.
Yeah, bounces any visit to your site that doesn't result in any form of engagement. So there's a common misconception that a bounce is what's called pogo sticking, that somebody goes to your site and then immediately leaves. That's not necessarily true. A bounce could also be somebody gets onto your blog post, reads it to the end, and then closes. They won't bounce if, as you're saying, they click through and start reading other stuff on your site, but it's also not considered a bounce if they do something like click on a social share button or click like or leave a comment. Or, fun fact, you want to know why every recipe site in the world does something really annoying where they make you like click a button to actually see the recipe. So you go to a recipe site and it's like back in my grandmother's day, and there's all the stuff you don't care about, and then you scroll all the way down and it's like click this button to see the recipe. What they're doing there is they're gaming their metrics to make their site look better to prospective buyers or to like affiliate marketing sites, whoever.
That's so
they're gaming their statistics. They're gaming Google Analytics to make their bounce rate look super low, because to get to the thing you actually want to see there, you have to engage.
So also on those articles where you click on it and they're like start the slideshow and you have to click every time to see the next thing.
Gaming bounce rate. Yeah,
Very
so
interesting.
learning all the dirty black hat marketing tricks on the Hit Subscribe Facebook Live. We don't do these things. We consider ourselves to be a relative marketing force for good. We would not encourage a client to run games like this. It's just not. It's a terrible user experience. Penny wise and pound foolish if you're doing things like this. Sure, your analytics might look better. Sure, some affiliate marketing site might pick you up, but your readers hate you. Don't take shortcuts like that. Anyway, enough preaching. I guess another thing that's important with Google Analytics, or a thing of like real value that you can get out of it, is you can see where your readers or your constituents are coming from.
Oh yeah.
Meaning, like, are they finding you via organic search, which is a lot of what Hit Subscribe does? So are you ranking in the search engine and they're coming in that way? Are you attracting people, like you can see if they're all getting referred from somewhere? So like if you go down through Google Analytics, like on a lot of the sites that I run, you'll see it's called TKO.referral. Like they'll oh yeah. Hi, Lisa.
Oh, hi, Lisa.
Everybody hates the slideshows. So you can see like T.co, I think is what Twitter is. You can see Twitter, Facebook, like you can see how many people are coming from social media sites to your site, which will tell you how effectively you're reaching people.
Interesting.
You can see if they're coming from different search engines, like maybe your site gets a lot of like Bing or like Yahoo if they still have a search engine. So you get interesting insights, and like some of them you won't really, I guess, process till you're in Google Analytics and playing around, and you're like, oh, I never knew X. Like, I don't know. We sure have a lot of visitors from the Ukraine. I wonder what, but like you discover stuff like that you wouldn't really think of, and then you kind of dig into it and try to understand why are you reaching people in those places or in that way, and then like to capitalize on it. Like, well, hey, as long as these people are coming here and getting value out of this, let's speak to that audience.
Yeah, I like roasted Google Analytics pretty hard here, but like the stuff that you can learn from it is so valuable. The idea that you could start to understand the people that are coming to your site and their behavior, that's there's no replacing how valuable that is. So I forgive you for your terrible interface, Google.
So that's kind of Google Analytics in a nutshell. The other question we've got here is how do you use Google Analytics with Hit Subscribe? Like Hit Subscribe, just as a refresher for anybody watching, we, among other things, we're creating content, but we run a lot of our clients' blogs for them. And so some of our clients actually give us access to their Google Analytics to help us with our planning and give them insights and reports. So I guess the way I'll summarize the Hit Subscribe, if you're a client of ours and you give us access to your Google Analytics, we're doing a number of things in there. Probably the most important is we're keeping an eye on the traffic trend over the course of time to evaluate how the posts that we're planning and writing for you are doing. And what that lets us do is see which ones do better than others and then like write more of those. So for any given audience, for any given client, any given blog, different things are going to appeal. And a good way to like really learn is through trial and error. I mean, a lot of people would maybe sit down and say like, okay, I'm going to try to write to, this particular audience. What do I think they would like? But you're never really going to know that. The way to know is, by knowing. Like you write the posts, you see what they like, and then you write more of those posts. So that's kind of the biggest one. There's a few like more subtle things where I'm paying attention to client analytics. One is to see if there's what's called like technical SEO problems. So you can kind of use Google Analytics to do a sanity check on your site. Like if you're, like we have this satellite site, Make Me a Programmer, that's getting, 40, 50 visitors a day on average. If you go into Google Analytics one day and you see that like 3 days ago that dropped to nothing, there's something wrong with your site. Your site might be down. I mean, it might just be that Google Analytics came unhooked. But often your analytics can indicate like problems. Likewise, if you're, we have a site, say, that's getting 1,000 visitors a day and that drops to 500, it might be that Google did like a update in how they rank sites and you just got nailed by it, and there's something that you need to go do with your site to fix that. So it can be kind of like a canary in the coal mine, Google Analytics. It gives insights for us to help our clients do better content planning. And then it also helps our clients and us kind of in conjunction tell a good story. Like we're engaged with a lot of people whose role is like chief marketing officer or like head of digital marketing or something, like that's our client.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times our clients are working with us to go and say to their boss, who sits in the C-suite and approves budget, like, help us hit subscribe, prove that this digital marketing thing is worth investing, that we get a return on it. And so Google Analytics does help with that. You can see statistics about site visits, conversions, etc. So it helps us help our clients paint a picture that says, look, all of this content is actually driving conversions and making you money.
Well said.
So that's another big use that we get out of it. Anything I'm forgetting? I mean, it's generally more me even the analytics than you.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I learned a lot today. I should talk to you more often.
So yeah, that's Google Analytics. Anybody that's interested, feel free to reach out. Like if you are starting a blog and you don't know something about analytics, I'm actually like not an expert, but I would say that I'm like an intermediate to getting to be advanced user. There's just so many like nooks and crannies and use cases in Google Analytics. But if you're just starting out and something's mystifying you, feel free to reach out.
Cool.
And that's it. Join us next week. We will do more stuff. We'll probably have cats.
I'll probably
Again?
still be sick.
Poor Amanda will probably still be sick. No, let's be optimistic. You won't be sick next week.
All right.
All right. Bye, everyone.